The snow was falling hard, thick, heavy, the kind that silenced entire streets. And in the middle of that white emptiness, a tiny black boy stood shivering outside the tall glass doors of Brandt Industries. No gloves, shoes soaked, eyes red. The CEO, Michael Brandt, had just stepped out when the boy tugged his coat gently, barely there. "Sir," the child whispered, breath trembling in the cold. "My mom, she never came home last night." Michael froze. Behind them, two security guards exchanged looks, annoyed, dismissive. One muttered, "Kid, move along. CEO doesn't have time for this." But Michael knelt, eye level with the boy. "What's your name?" he asked. The boy swallowed. "Caleb." And then, Caleb's next words made Michael's breath stop. "I think she's hurt, and nobody will help me. Stay with this story. What happens next will break your heart and rebuild your faith in humanity." Michael Brandt wasn't the kind of CEO people expected to kneel in the snow. Tall, sharp suit, known for closing billion-dollar deals without blinking. But something in Caleb's voice, that soft, shaking whisper, pulled him out of the world of polished floors and boardrooms, and into the cold reality this child was standing in. Caleb was 8, small for his age, wrapped in a thin jacket that did nothing against the brutal winter wind. His backpack hung open, stuffed with old worksheets and a broken pencil. Behind him stood two kinds of people. Witnesses who pretended not to see. Security who saw him but didn't care. Caleb's mother, Renee Parker, worked the night shift at a diner 2 blocks away. A single mother who walked miles in the snow when buses didn't run. She was known for kindness too big for her own good. Slipping free meals to elderly regulars. Staying late when coworkers went home early. Smiling through exhaustion. But last night, she never came home. Caleb waited until 2 a.m., then 3, then 4. He walked through the storm, alone, because no one answered at the diner, and the police brushed him off with a cold, "Maybe she just left early." The inequality was obvious. If a wealthy woman went missing, patrol cars would tear through the city. But a black single mother, working night shift? No urgency, no search, no concern. Caleb told Michael everything in broken pieces. "She always comes home. She always calls. I checked her room. I checked the hallway. The snow's so loud I thought she was walking. But she never came." Michael's jaw tightened. Because once, years ago, he had been Caleb, a child watching the world ignore his mother's suffering. He stood up, brushing snow from his coat. "Caleb," he said softly, "I'm going with you. Right now." Caleb blinked, stunned. You will?" Michael nodded. "There's something you're not telling me. I can see it in your eyes." The boy looked down and whispered, "I saw her phone. On the ground, outside the diner." The snowstorm was still roaring when Michael and Caleb stepped out of the lobby. Wind slapped their faces, stinging like needles. Caleb wrapped his arms around himself, walking fast, like his small body was chasing something it feared losing forever. Michael placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "Slow down, son. I'm right here." Caleb nodded, but his breaths were sharp, nervous. Every gust of wind seemed to whisper the same question. Where is she? They turned the corner toward the diner. A rundown building glowing faintly, like a tired heartbeat against the storm. Neon sign flickering, windows fogged. But something felt wrong immediately. No footprints, no tire marks, no sign of late-night staff, just emptiness. Caleb pointed with a trembling hand. "That's where I found it." Michael followed his gaze. There, half buried in snow, lay a cracked phone, Renee's case unmistakable. Decorated with a faded sunflower sticker Caleb made at school. Michael crouched, brushing the snow aside. The phone screen was shattered, but not by the fall. The crack lines spread out like it had been stomped. His jaw tightened. "Caleb, did anyone else see this?" Caleb shook his head. "The police didn't listen. They said if I lost something, I should check it home." Michael closed his eyes, furious. This wasn't negligence, it was dismissal, a judgment made before a single question was asked. He picked up the phone carefully. There was dried blood near the corner. Caleb gasped quietly. "Mom?" Michael swallowed hard. "We're not jumping to conclusions." But we are going to find out what happened. At the diner's door, Michael tried the handle. Locked. Caleb pressed his face to the glass. There's still plates on the counter. Mom always cleans before closing. A red flag. Michael knocked hard. Hello? Anyone inside? Silence. Then, movement. A shadow shifted in the back hallway. Caleb flinched behind him. Someone's there. Michael stepped in front of him instinctively, knocking again, louder this time. Open the door. I'm not leaving. More silence. Then the door creaked open just an inch. A pair of suspicious eyes peered out. It was Todd Rawlings, the assistant manager. Greasy apron, red eyes. A man who always spoke down to workers, especially Renee. Todd's face twisted when he recognized Caleb. What do you want? We're closed. Michael's voice sharpened. We need to ask about Renee Parker. Todd scoffed. She didn't show last night. Probably quit. Caleb's voice cracked. She would never quit. Todd shrugged. Not my problem. Michael stared him down. Her phone was found outside, broken, and there's blood on it. Todd's lip twitched. Barely, but enough. Michael noticed. We're coming inside, he said. Todd stepped forward, blocking the entrance. No, you're... Before he could finish, Michael flashed his company badge. It wasn't police, but when someone with that level of power showed up unannounced, most people stepped back. Todd hesitated. But then he made a mistake, a big one. He muttered under his breath. She should have kept her mouth shut. Michael froze. What did you just say? Todd's face drained of color. I didn't mean... Yes, Michael said, stepping forward. You did. Caleb clung to Michael's coat. The storm outside raged harder, wind howling through the alleyway like it carried Renee's last cry. Michael lowered his voice. Where is she? Todd backed away, eyes darting like a trapped animal. I don't know anything. But his shaky hands told another story. Michael reached into his pocket, pulling out Renee's phone. You sure? Because this says otherwise. Todd swallowed. For a full 5 seconds, no one moved. Then, a back door slammed inside the diner. Footsteps. Running. Fast. Caleb gasped. Someone else is here. Michael grabbed the boy's hand. Stay behind me. They pushed through the door as snow swirled in behind them. The diner was dark except for emergency lights. Chairs overturned. A trail of scattered napkins leading toward the storage hallway. And somewhere in the distance, a muffled cry. Caleb froze. That's her. That's my mom. His voice was barely a whisper, but it was enough to ignite something in Michael's chest. He squeezed the boy's hand. We're going to find her. Whatever it takes. They stepped deeper into the shadows. Toward the truth. Toward the danger. Toward the moment everything would explode. The farther Michael and Caleb moved down the narrow hallway, the colder the air grew. Not from the storm outside, but from something deeper. Something wrong. The overhead light flickered, buzzing like a dying heartbeat. Caleb squeezed Michael's hand tighter. Sir, that cry. It sounded like her. Michael nodded. I heard it too. They reached a door at the end of the hallway. The storage room. The same place Renee had once complained about to a coworker. No cameras, no lights. Feels unsafe. Michael placed his ear against the metal. Silence. Then, a weak, trembling knock from the inside. Caleb's breath shattered into sobs. Mom! Michael didn't think. He rammed his shoulder into the door. Once. Twice. The bolt cracked. The third hit blew it open. And there she was. Renee Parker. Bound to a chair. Hands tied with duct tape. A gash on her forehead. Her apron torn. Her breathing shallow. Caleb ran forward, crying out, Mom! Mom, I'm here. Renee lifted her head, barely conscious. See, Caleb? Her voice was thin, broken. Michael rushed to untie her, jaw tightening with rage. Who did this to you? What happened? Her lips trembled as she tried to speak. It wasn't Todd. Her eyes shifted toward the back corner of the room. He just followed orders. Michael turned and froze. Standing behind a stack of crates was Victor Dalton, the actual manager, the one with a history of disciplinary issues, the one known for threatening staff behind closed doors. the one who always smiled too wide whenever corporate visited. But this time he wasn't smiling. He stepped out slowly, breathing heavy, eyes bloodshot. "I told her," Victor hissed. "I told her to keep her mouth shut." Caleb hid behind Michael, shaking violently. Michael stepped in front of both of them. "What did she do?" he demanded. Victor's eyes narrowed. "She reported me. Said I was stealing from the register. Said I was threatening staff. Corporate was supposed to audit today." He pointed toward Renee. "Because of her. She ruined everything," Renee whispered through cracked lips. He pushed me when I said I wouldn't lie. He said nobody would care if I didn't show up for work. That nobody listens to people like me." Michael felt something ignite inside him. Something deeper than anger. A righteous fury. He stood taller, positioning himself between Victor and the family. "You kidnapped her," Michael said. "Beat her. Left her here in the cold. And hoped no one would notice." Victor laughed bitterly. "No one did notice. Except this kid. And if he hadn't bothered the wrong man," he pointed at Michael, "you wouldn't be here." Michael's voice lowered, deadly calm. "You made one mistake." Victor scoffed. "Oh yeah? And what's that?" "You forgot people like me don't look away." Michael reached into his coat. Victor froze when he saw the object. A small recording device. LED blinking. It had captured everything he just said. Victor lunged, panicked, reckless. Michael dodged, grabbing Victor's arm, twisting it behind his back and slamming him into the wall. Victor yelled, struggling wildly. But Michael held him with the precision and strength of someone who had trained for moments like this. "Let me go," Victor shrieked. "You should have thought of that before assaulting your own employee," Michael replied. Caleb ran to his mother, hugging her tightly as tears poured down his face. "Mom, I found you. I found you." Renee clutched him with shaking arms, whispering, "You saved me, baby." Michael dragged Victor toward the entrance of the hallway, one hand gripping his collar like a parent dragging a tantrum-throwing child. "Todd!" Michael shouted. Todd peeked around the corner, terrified. Yes?" Michael shoved Victor forward. "Call 911, now, and tell them to bring an ambulance and law enforcement." Todd trembled as he dialed. Michael returned to Renee and Caleb. He knelt beside them. "Renee, stay awake. Help is coming." She nodded weakly, eyes glassy but conscious. "You came for me." He shook his head gently. "He came for you." He looked at Caleb. "You raised a brave kid." Caleb sniffled. "I just wanted my mom to come home." Michael placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. "She will." In the distance, sirens began to wail. Victor, still pinned on the floor, screamed, "You'll ruin everything." Michael stood over him. "No," he said quietly. "You ruined it yourself." The sirens grew louder, echoing through the storm, and in that frozen hallway, battered, bloodied, terrified, Renee Parker lifted her head and finally breathed. The wind outside had finally calmed, but inside that conference hallway, nobody moved. Not after what they had just witnessed. Gregory Cole, the CEO who moments ago was being mocked by his own board, stood, with his arm wrapped protectively around. Malik, the little black boy who had walked miles through snow just to find someone who would listen. And now, the truth was out. All of it. The homeless shelter camera footage. The forged signatures. The embezzled funds that were supposed to provide food, heat, and beds for families like Malik's. And, most importantly, the proof that the board members tried to bury. Malik's mother's disappearance. The room felt frozen, as if time itself was holding its breath. Then the impact hit. Fast. Loud. Earth-shaking. The Attorney General's office stormed. Through the building with investigators behind them. They moved straight toward the 3 board members who had been laughing earlier. Their voices were sharp now, echoing off marble floors. "Hands where we can see them." The same men who smirked when Malik said, "My mom never came home last night," were now being walked out in handcuffs. A reporter whispered, "This is the biggest charity fraud arrest in the state." But Malik didn't care about that. He was staring at the officer who approached the CEO. "Sir, we found her." Those words broke the building's silence. Malik froze. His fingers tightened around Gregory's coat. "She's alive," the officer said gently. "Cold, dehydrated, but alive." The boy's knees buckled and the CEO caught him before he fell. For the first time since he walked through the snow that morning, Malik allowed himself to cry, not because he was weak, but because hope had finally broken through the darkness. When they reached the hospital, Malik ran into the room, calling for his mother. She whispered his name with cracked lips, and he collapsed into her arms. Gregory stepped back, watching quietly. This wasn't his moment. It belonged to them. But the doctors noticed who he was. "Sir, your donation saved our winter shelters last year." "Thank you." He nodded, then looked back at Malik. Later that week, the city held a press conference. Reporters filled the steps outside headquarters. Cameras flashed. Microphones pointed, and they waited. For the boy. For his story. Gregory placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. "You don't have to speak," he whispered. But Malik took a slow breath, lifted his chin, and stepped toward the microphone anyway. His voice shook, but it carried. "My mom works 2 jobs. She never gives up, and I won't either." He swallowed hard. "I just needed anyone to listen." The crowd went silent, a deep, respectful silence. Then one woman stepped forward, the head of the Community Trust Foundation. "We're awarding Malik's mother a full recovery grant," she announced, her voice cracking. "And we're creating a new winter shelter program named after Malik." Cameras clicked. People clapped. But the boy didn't smile. Not yet. He turned to Gregory. "Are you gonna leave now?" The CEO knelt down, eye level. "Not unless you want me to." For a man who had money, power, and a corner office with a view, this quiet moment meant more than any of it. Because he realized something. In a world built on deals, contracts, investors, and deadlines, he had met the bravest person of all. A little black boy who fought for his mother without fear, without rest, and without anyone to protect him. In the weeks that followed, the fraudulent board members were sentenced. Malik and his mother were moved into safe, stable housing. Gregory set up a scholarship fund in Malik's name, and every year on the first snow, the 3 of them, Malik, his mom, and the CEO, took a picture together outside the shelter. Not as charity, not as publicity, but as family. Because sometimes, justice isn't just a courtroom moment. It's choosing to stand with someone after the cameras turn off. And sometimes the strongest people in the world are the ones who walk alone through snow, whispering for help, and refusing to stop until someone listens. In a world that often looks past the small and the silent, never underestimate the power of the child who keeps walking.